Hello and welcome to another episode of Silver Halide Wanderings. As always, thank you for anybody who's watched and liked any of the videos that I've uploaded, and hopefully today, as I've tried to do all along, today will be a little bit different from the run-of-the-mill YouTube videos. I'm going to talk about a camera, but it's not really going to be a review of the camera. It's much more a personal history with the camera. A camera that I've actually used since 1980, the second SLR that I bought, and it's my journey with that camera and why I use it today, 40 odd years later. So without more ado, let's talk about the Pentax ME Super.
In Japan, people demand a lot from a 35mm camera. That's why thousands of Japanese have gone beyond ordinary automatic 35s to the Pentax ME Super. The ME Super is really two cameras. On manual, you use it like a professional camera. But on automatic, it's as easy to use as any 35. The Pentax ME Super. One reason we've sold more 35 SLR cameras than any other company in Japan, or in the world.
The Pentax ME Super was the second SLR camera that I bought. I got one in 1980 after using a Casino CT1 for a year. And at the time I was only 14 and I got the CT1 for a Christmas present, but I spent an entire year basically saving money so that I could afford to buy a Pentax MX. And when I went to buy a Pentax MX, there were none in stock, and the only camera available at the time was an ME Super. And after having waited so long, I decided to get an ME Super. But even then, there was a lot in the press, a lot in the photographic press, about how the MX was a camera for professionals, whereas the ME Super was a camera for amateurs. So 2 years later, I did manage to get an MX, and I used both side by side for almost 10 years. Well, actually for more than 10 years. An amateur photographer, for instance, the ME Super was projected as a camera that was too small to use and not suitable for anybody with large hands. So I bought the ME2 winder for it at the time. And round about 1990, maybe 1991, when I was out of work and quite short for cash, I ended up selling the ME Super, but keeping the ME MX. For the next 15 years, until about 2015, I actually didn't have a Pentax ME Super. I continued using the MX. I even got a Pentax SD Digital and used Rolly SLs and Voigtlander and Zeiss rangefinders built by Casino, until I inherited this almost mint ME Super, black ME Super, that had belonged to my wife's grandmother. And that started a re-evaluation of what an ME Super means to me, until it's become my favourite camera to use. So, having not used one for quite a while, what was it that I rediscovered or found possibly for the first time? Strangely, it was the thing that put me off originally, or maybe I was put off from the form factor. I actually really liked the small body, and along with the ME that preceded it, the ME Super is one of the smallest SLR cameras ever made. But after a couple of years of using Casino-based rangefinders, I actually find the body really nice. I quite like using it, and at the moment it's got the rather large 50mm f1.4 lens, which I've made a video about already, that again, a lens that I really like. But with smaller lenses on it, the 28mm f2.8 or even the 50mm f2, it almost gets to the point of being a pocketable camera. It's not pocketable, but it's as small as you're going to get in an SLR. And it just works beautifully on aperture priority. It becomes a point and shoot. You put a 28mm lens on it, and all of a sudden you've got a really great point and shoot if you're in bright conditions or you're using fast film. But interestingly, it's manual function that I find to be its biggest advantage. My eyesight is not as good as it used to be, and the LED viewfinder being on the left-hand side, or the LEDs in the viewfinder being on the left-hand side, I find it much easier to read than the dial meter which is on the MX. And push-button manual, I've become a lover of push-button manual, and it's one of the things I tell younger photographers. Don't jump to conclusions on what other people say about cameras. You really need to give the camera time and a chance. I personally don't understand the jumping backwards and forwards and trying out lots and lots of different cameras. You really need to sort of live with your camera. And sort of in a nutshell, that's it. It's a camera that I've really started to appreciate. I really love them. Now, this is not the camera that was my wife's grandmother's. I still have that. That's back home in France. I work in Cambodia, and I picked this one up a couple of months ago here for a very reasonable price in working condition. It's a little bit scruffy, but it works well. And when you get a working ME Super, they are fabulous. And there's plenty of videos that if you pick one up and it's got a stuck mirror or a stuck shut, there's plenty of videos that show that generally that's quite an easy fix. And they can be bought for less than the K1000. And I think they're a much more useful camera. It's a camera that I really enjoy using. Of course, there isn't any getting away from the fact that it's an electronic camera, that it's an electronically controlled shutter and that sometime that shutter may fail and the system may fail, which is why I bought this other black body in the first place, and since then a chrome body. Both are in full working order, but they can both also act as a set of spares. But there are plenty of ME Super bodies out there in very good working condition and at very good prices. This is everything that a K1000 is and more. It allows you to do so much more. They're such a beautiful camera to use. I would really recommend them. And that's really sort of my overview of them. So I'm just going to leave you some images. A couple of the images were made all the way back in the 1980s, and the black and whites are much more recent. But it's a lovely camera to use, and I would suggest thinking about them if you're interested in buying into the Pentax K-mount system. Okay, thank you very much for watching today's episode. If you enjoyed it, please press the like. You might consider subscribing for no more than to get notification of when I post the next video. I do these videos for fun, not for profit of any sort, and hopefully you got something from it, and I look forward to people's comments, maybe about using the ME Super or maybe never using the ME Super. So again, thanks a lot.